here I am at Ruddell's Mills, and there's a reason I love doing what I do. First off, I'm flagging down traffic, trying to figure out where the creeks come together and the start of the river is. And so here is exactly what the lady told me. She said, it's right over there. Said, but the only way into it is behind the bikers bar. So we agreed that maybe I needed to tread easy in regards to getting down to the creek bottom. She said her sister used to own the property and she sold it off recently. I'm gonna go by and take a photo of the bikers bar, just so you know I'm not lying to you. And we'll continue our quest. As Dixie and I are traveling between Ruddell's Mills and Lair, Kentucky, let me explain our agenda. We have identified 8 low-head dams on the South Fork of the Licking River. 2 of them are in disrepair and 6 of them are still functional. The one in Lair, Kentucky, which is where we're going now, is in disrepair, and the one that is located at the confluence of Mill Creek and the South Fork of the Licking River, that one is also in disrepair, but we won't be able to get to that one. That one is located on private property, and the only way to get to it is come across that private property, or come down the railroad, which is right adjacent to it, or come in on the creek, which we're not going to have time to do today on that one. So that one we will not be able to see. The other 7 low-head dams, again, one is repaired, 6 is still in disrepair, and 6 of them are functional. We'll get to those, we hope. That's our objective. So let's get to it, and I look forward to spending the day with you. Welcome to another episode of FishingLocalWaters.com. Remember, if you're fishing, you're almost always fishing in someone's local waters. So when on private land, talk to the owners and ask permission. And always be courteous and good stewards whenever you're on private or public properties. We hope you enjoyed this segment of FishingLocalWaters.com. Well, we're in Lair, Kentucky, and this is the old Lewis Hunter Distillery, which has been abandoned. Looks like it's under new ownership. Maybe it's going to be restored. I don't know. I'll do some research on that and see. But they used to have a low-head dam that direction, and we're about to come around the corner, go around the corner, across the bridge, and see if we can't find that low-head dam. It seems there once was a common motto within the South Fork Licking River Valley. It was, give me corn, give me water, a dam, and a railroad, and I'll give you some of the best bourbon you've ever tasted. I was surprised to find the railroad adjacent to every low-head dam site. Originally, this was the Kentucky Central Railroad that became part of the Louisville-Nashville, or L&N, and now the CSX line. Even in Berry and Poindexter, 2 of the more remote locations, you'll find the railroad. The creek coming under the railroad overpass is Edgewater Branch, and you can still see concrete structures along the creek bank that reminds us of the reason and the history behind the now washed out dam. In Cynthiana, you will find 2 low-head dams. This is the Terry Dam. The second is the A. Keller low-head dam, located about a mile downstream. In the 1800s, the C.B. Cook Distillery was located above the dam, and this building was built in 1809 as a woolen factory. It served as a whiskey warehouse during the Civil War and this 1877 map shows the building as the J.W. Peck and Company Licking Valley Mills. It was converted into the Crown Jewel Flour Mill in 1905. As previously mentioned, these low-head dams are directly tied to the production of whiskey, Kentucky bourbon, the railroads, corn, water, and now the Civil War. So once again, we have a historical significance associated with the Low-Head Dam. But it is more than what's going on right here. Things that happened here in Cynthiana also involve the Keller Dam and also the Berry Dam, and let me explain. During the Civil War, Kentucky decided not to leave the Union, but also be a slave state, trying to straddle the fence between their belief in a national concept and their Southern culture left many Kentuckians divided, and this included the citizens of Cynthiana. All of this intense political division collided in grand style in June of 1864, when John Hunt Morgan, commander of the 2nd Kentucky Confederate Cavalry Regiment, decided to attack Cynthiana, Kentucky. The Confederates crossed the river where the boat ramps are now located below Terry Dam, and they attacked the courthouse and the train depot that was located directly above where the C.B. Cook distillery once stood. At the train depot, Colonel George W. Berry, for whom Berry, Kentucky is named, and the location of another low-head dam, was shot in the head while defending the depot. His son was a member of John Hunt Morgan's cavalry and was informed of his father's serious wounds. Arrangements were made for the two to meet on the field of battle, and after a tearful reunion and using a door as a stretcher, Colonel George Berry was loaded onto a train and taken to his home in Berry, Kentucky. How and when this occurred remains a mystery to me. The A. Keller Railroad Bridge, located about a mile north of town and adjacent to the A. Keller Low-Head Dam, had been burned on June 9th by Morgan's troops, and now the Confederates laid in wait on the surrounding hillsides for the arrival of General Edward Hobson and the men of the 171st of Ohio. The train arrived carrying the troops and stopped in the river bottoms and within 15 rods of the burning bridge. Upon exiting the train, the Union troops were immediately fired upon, and they quickly found themselves hemmed in on three sides with no avenue to escape. After 5 hours of fighting, General Hobson surrendered his command and men around 11 a.m. on June the 11th, 1864 to John Hunt Morgan. So you see, 3 of the Low-Head Dam locations were involved on that day in history. One is here at Terry Dam. We will visit the A. Keller site next, and the Berry location is a little lower down river. When one looks at the overhead view of the A. Keller Bridge and the Low-Head Dam, we see the perfect setting for a military trap. I do not believe that this was by chance. Morgan had mastered the skill of tapping into the telegraph system and sending false messages. Therefore, General Edward Hobson may have been advancing with bad intel. It is my belief that this was a well-laid and perfectly executed trap. And the prize was not the town, but the capture of the Union troops and hope to negotiate a prisoner exchange for the men he had lost in the Ohio raid. In General Hobson's field reports, he talks about communications associated with a prisoner exchange and that these conversations took place on June 12th, the following day. The Low-Head Dam that was once featured on postcards and called Cynthiana's Little Niagara flows quietly in a beautiful setting. The A. Keller Mill House is gone. The once thriving distillery and employees are gone. And the soldiers are gone. And the train that do come by never seem to slow or stop. As we drop in on Poindexter and view the Lowhead Dam from the bridge above, one would never guess that a large distillery once stood to our left. In fact, I drove right by the lane without giving it any notice. Once again, I talked to the locals, and no one remembers the distillery. One lady in her 80s told me she remembers walking the dam as a child to go to church. I'm assuming the Union Baptist Church that is located nearby. But she couldn't recall a distillery or a mill, which makes sense since the distillery stopped operating when Prohibition was enacted, which would be about 100 years ago and before her childhood. The distillery was built in 1856 by John Poindexter, and in 1869 the Wigglesworth family acquired it, tore it down, and rebuilt it. By 1910 the mashing capacity had been increased to 300 bushels per day, and there was 3 bonded warehouses with a storage capacity of 20,000 barrels. Yes, there is a railroad that crosses a little downstream. Just recently, an old case of Old John Poindexter sold at auction for $18,300, and the single bottles of the same batch can be found online selling for $2,000 each. Not too shabby, I would say, for a quiet little town sitting below the Union Baptist Church. As we arrive at the Robinson Dam, I would like for you to notice several features. The first is the curvature design of the dam. All of the other dams on the South Fork of the Licking River are straight across. In addition, this dam is also built at a confluence. The creek entering on the left is Twin Creek. This means this dam influences the water level of both the South Fork and the Twin Creek. The Robinson Mill was located on the left-hand side, and elements of the concrete mill race can still be seen. While researching this area, we believe we found the possible remains of another Lowhead Dam located upstream a few miles at the confluence of Mill Creek. When the Covington and Lexington Railroad Company, who later changed their name to Kentucky Central, was laying track between Falmouth and Cynthiana, they kept record of their progress. We found an 1854 reference to having completed track to Mr. Robinson's Mill 8 miles north of Cynthiana. I would also like for you to take notice, you're in the middle of corn country. This is some of the most fertile land in the United States, and like all agricultural-based communities, it is dependent upon ample water supplies. This episode is packed full of conflict, federal rights versus state rights, slavery versus freedom, a father fighting for the Union and his son or sons fighting for the Confederates, the politics of a culture rooted in the South but selling bourbon to the North. During the Civil War period, a Cynthiana newspaper editor was put in jail for writing articles supporting the Confederate cause, along with a local judge and a county clerk. And let's not forget the debate as to whether John Hunt Morgan was a brilliant commander or a common horse thief, and that many Protestant-affiliated churches, such as the Baptist, believed Prohibition was the right choice and justified. Water rights and laws within the state of Kentucky is as unclear as the Licking River after a hard day rain. For every case law that allows for a legal opinion in one direction, there is a second that counters it. Legal definitions are intentionally vague, such as waters that can be navigated. In the last episode, we talked about the dangers of Lowhead dams, and in this episode, we are amazed at their beauty, their deep historical significance, and their economical impact. Who owns the dams is also a debate. The federal, state, and local authorities will all claim some right to govern and oversee the dams until money needs to be spent to maintain, improve, or remove one of the dams, and then no one wants to take ownership. This dam is right smack in the middle of this churning controversy, which is as turbulent as the boil zone beneath the spillway. As soon as you step foot in the parking lot, you see a memorial to its latest victim. And then you turn and see the acres of crops that is dependent on its water and the number of people who fish above and below the dam. Not to mention that members of the historical societies understands its historical significance and feels the need to preserve it. And we know that running water is colder and holds more dissolved oxygen than warm water. And as global temperatures rise, fish will need this oxygen. And yet, as we argue all these truths, we cannot forget that parents mourn the loss of a child right here at this dam.
Well, here we are at Berry, Kentucky, the Lowhead Dam there. It's a little hard to find when you cross over the bridge, so it's so tight up against the bridge that you don't see it at first. But it's another beautiful feature on the river. In fact, the whole day has been just wonderful. I put the coordinates in, as I explained, for the headwaters, and then I went from each to each Lowhead Dam, and it's just been a beautiful drive. And it's a wonderful, if you're looking for something to do on a beautiful Sunday afternoon, I would strongly recommend doing it. I'll put the coordinates, I'll post those so you can get to them. And today it's just been great. Talked to a lot of the locals, and I'm going to have to start carrying a listening device and start recording the folks. Because I will stop and I will ask, I'll talk to people, I'll flag people down on the road and ask them, I said, you know why that Lowhead Dam is there? And it's amazing that a lot of folks don't. Now on this one of the individuals, one of the local boys that actually moved away, but he's come back and brought his son down to fish. I talked to him today, and he indicated that there used to be a mill here, and we can see some remnants of some stonework on the other side of the river, so that's a good possibility. I talked to Poindexter, I talked to one older lady, had to be closing in on 80 years of age, and I'm not too far from that myself. But she said, I don't remember anything, a mill or anything like that. She goes, the only thing I remember is we used to walk to church on Sunday, and we'd walk across that spillway in order to get to church. And like I said, she was probably around 80. The Keller farm, oh my goodness. Just beautiful, just a beautiful location, a beautiful farm, just reeks with this history when you're there. And then my understanding is that the old Hunter brewery, it looks like it's somebody else has purchased it, and they say their renovations are taking place. At least that's what the sign says out back. So anyway, you got one more stop. We're gonna head for Falmouth. Thank you for watching FishingLocalWaters.com.
I would like to give special thanks to Amy at the Harrison County Library, who helped me with our research in Cynthiana. My phone calls were numerous, and her patience was most appreciated. The reason for the Lowhead Dams and the memories of the old distilleries are beginning to fade. I'm afraid eventually they will be lost to time. At the start of the 1920 Prohibition, there were 210 distilleries in Kentucky and millions of barrels in warehouses all over the state. We have identified 16 Prohibition bonded distilleries within the 6th District of Kentucky, which includes the South Fork of the Licking River. One of those 16 sat right here to my left and was named the McDonald and Holt Distillery. Next to it sat the Falmouth Woolen Factory. As you look at the map, note the mill race that the Lowhead Dam funneled water into. This will explain the structure rising from the pile of asphalt over my shoulder that was dumped to stop the flow of water. Also note on the map the elements of the common theme, which is give me water, give me corn, give me a dam and a railroad, and I'll give you some of the best bourbon you've ever tasted.
Well, it's 6:30. The sun is beginning to set, and we're at the last low head dam on the south fork of the Licking River. Again, we set out today to look at every low head dam, started the headwaters, and work our way down, and we were able to accomplish that. Along the way, I have fallen in love with the south fork of the Licking River. I've come to understand how it provides water for fertile farmland in the valleys. I'm surprised at how much farmland is there and how much corn and tobacco and other crops are being grown. All along the way, the scenery was fantastic. I found an old covered bridge. It just keeps going on and on. You know, it's beautiful, and that's all I can say. We look forward to seeing you again on another episode of Fishing Local Waters of Ky.